You didn't fail at waking up early. Your alarm failed you. Your bedtime failed you. The entire approach most people use to become a morning person, sheer willpower, louder alarms, motivational quotes taped to the ceiling, that failed you. Because none of it was ever based on how your body actually works. Here's something worth sitting with. The people who wake up early without suffering aren't more disciplined than you. They're not built differently. What they're doing, knowingly or not, is working with their biology instead of fighting it every single morning like it's an opponent. Chronobiology, the scientific study of biological timing, has documented with increasing precision how the human sleep-wake cycle operates. And what the research appears to indicate is that early rising isn't primarily a willpower challenge. It's an environmental and behavioral design challenge. Get the conditions right, and waking up early becomes significantly less of a battle. The philosopher Aristotle reportedly rose before dawn daily, not because he was punishing himself, but because, as he wrote, "It is well to be up before daybreak, for such habits contribute to health, wealth, and wisdom." He didn't have neuroscience. He had observation, and his observation appears to have been correct in ways he couldn't fully explain at the time. 5 specific, science-grounded tricks, not 5 vague suggestions. Each one targets a different part of the biological mechanism that determines whether your morning feels like emergence or warfare. Like this video, drop a comment, share it with someone who hits snooze 6 times every morning, subscribe to this channel, and don't skip any part. Because trick 4 is the one that most sleep researchers consider the highest leverage change a person can make. And it's probably not what you'd expect. Let's go. Number 1. Fix your wake time before you fix your bedtime. Almost everyone approaches this backwards. The instinct is to focus on when you go to sleep, get to bed earlier, and waking up early will follow naturally. That logic sounds reasonable. In practice, it tends not to work, because most people can't simply decide to feel tired at 9:30 p.m. when their body has been calibrated to wind down at midnight for the past 3 years. Sleep scientist Till Renneberg, whose research on chronotypes has been widely cited, has described the sleep-wake cycle as a system that anchors primarily to the wake time rather than the sleep time. In other words, your body clock sets itself forward from when you rise, not backward from when you intend to sleep. Fixing your wake time first, and holding it consistently even on weekends, appears to gradually shift the entire sleep cycle earlier without requiring you to force sleep onset. The practical instruction here is specific. Pick one wake time and defend it for 2 weeks straight, regardless of when you fell asleep the night before. Yes, including Saturday. Yes, even if you went to bed late. The short-term tiredness is the mechanism working. Your body will begin pulling sleep onset earlier to compensate. Consistency of rising time is the anchor. Everything else adjusts around it. Most people try to fix sleep from the wrong end. Start with the alarm, not the pillow. Number 2. Use light as an alarm, not just sound. Sound alarms wake the conscious mind. Light wakes the biological clock. These are not the same thing, and understanding the difference could change how your mornings feel entirely. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, your brain's master circadian clock, receives its primary timing signal through light hitting the retina, specifically short-wavelength blue light that signals daytime to the brain's arousal system. When your room is dark until the moment a loud alarm goes off, your body is being jolted awake without the biological transition that light exposure would normally provide. That jarring quality, the groggy, disoriented feeling many people experience, is not a personality trait. It appears to be a physiological response to abrupt arousal without the natural light cue the system was designed to receive. Light therapy researchers have documented that gradual light exposure in the 20 to 30 minutes before a target wake time can reduce sleep inertia, the grogginess of waking, and make the transition to alertness faster and less effortful. Dawn simulation alarm clocks replicate this effect by gradually brightening the room starting before the alarm sounds. If a dawn simulator isn't accessible, the alternative is immediate outdoor light exposure within minutes of waking, stepping outside or sitting near a window before reaching for coffee. The light signal tells the brain's clock, "It's morning, calibrate now." That signal, received early and consistently, progressively makes early waking feel more natural rather than forced. Number 3. Lower your room temperature before you wake up. Here's the trick that sounds too physical to be motivational, and works precisely because it is. Core body temperature follows a predictable daily rhythm. It drops during sleep, reaches its lowest point in the early morning hours, and then begins rising as waking approaches. That temperature rise is actually part of the arousal signal. It's one of the mechanisms your body uses to transition from sleep to wakefulness. A bedroom that stays warm through the night appears to blunt this temperature gradient, making the natural arousal signal weaker and sleep inertia worse. Matthew Walker's research on sleep physiology describes the bedroom temperature as one of the most underestimated variables in sleep quality. The commonly cited optimal range for sleep is approximately 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, cooler than most people keep their bedrooms by default. The practical application specifically for early waking involves programming a thermostat, if available, to begin a slight temperature increase about 30 minutes before your target wake time. The rising temperature mimics the body's natural warming signal and appears to assist the transition to wakefulness before the alarm sounds. Waking into a slightly warmer room than you slept in is, counterintuitively, easier than waking into cold, because the warmth is rising rather than static, which aligns with the body's own directional signal. Temperature is a sleep lever almost no early rising advice mentions. Now you have it. Number 4. Give tomorrow morning a reason to exist. This is the one sleep researchers and behavioral scientists both point to, and it has almost nothing to do with biology. A physician named Hiro Ohaya in a Japanese study on retirement and longevity contributed to research around the concept of ikigai, a Japanese term roughly translating to reason for being, or, more practically, the thing that gives a person a reason to get out of bed. The research appeared to show that individuals with a clear sense of purpose not only reported higher life satisfaction, but demonstrated measurably different morning behavior, including earlier, more consistent waking, compared to those without a defined daily purpose. The mechanism is straightforward. When tomorrow morning has something in it worth getting up for, something you chose and care about, not just obligations, the alarm becomes less of an interruption and more of an entry point. The brain, which is already beginning to surface toward waking in the minutes before the alarm sounds, has something to move toward rather than something to resist. This doesn't require a grand life purpose. It requires something specific tomorrow, a book you're partway through, a project you're genuinely engaged with, a morning walk you've been looking forward to, coffee made exactly how you like it in quiet before anyone else wakes up. Small and real beats large and abstract. A teacher named Marcus began waking at 5:30 a.m. not because of a new alarm strategy, but because he started spending that hour on a novel he'd been trying to write for 6 years. The hour belonged entirely to him and the work he cared about. Within 2 weeks, he was waking before the alarm. Purpose, it turns out, is one of the most effective alarm clocks available. Number 5. Never negotiate with the snooze button. The snooze button is not your friend. It is, neurologically speaking, one of the more counterproductive habits a person can bring to the morning. Here's what actually happens when you snooze. Your brain, which was beginning its natural arousal process in preparation for your alarm, gets the signal to reinitiate sleep onset. It begins cycling back toward a lighter sleep stage. Then the alarm sounds again, 9 minutes later, interrupting that process at a point where you feel demonstrably worse than you did before you hit snooze. This phenomenon has a name: sleep inertia augmentation. The snooze doesn't add rest. It adds confusion. Sleep researcher Rafael Pelayo at Stanford has described the snooze habit as one that consistently leaves people feeling worse upon final waking than they would have felt rising at the first alarm. The body had prepared for 6:30 a.m. What it got instead was a false restart at 6:39. The behavioral fix here is environmental rather than motivational. Place your alarm, your phone, or a physical clock across the room, far enough that getting to it requires standing up. The act of standing, research appears to indicate, initiates a physiological shift that makes returning to bed meaningfully harder than it would be from a horizontal position. You've broken the physical inertia of lying still, which is often the only thing keeping a person in bed after the alarm sounds. One alarm, across the room, non-negotiable. 5 tricks, each one aimed at a different part of the system that determines whether waking up early is a fight or a flow. Anchor your wake time first and hold it without exception. Use light to trigger the biological clock before sound startles you awake. Work with your body's temperature rhythm rather than against it. Give tomorrow morning something genuinely worth rising for. And remove the snooze option before it removes your best hours. None of these require becoming a different person. They require adjusting the conditions you wake into, which is something you can begin tonight. Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." It's been quoted so often it's lost most of its texture. But strip away the familiarity. The observation was made by someone who had noticed, empirically, that the shape of the morning had an outsized effect on the shape of everything that followed. The science, centuries later, appears to be making the same case in more precise language. Your morning is not fixed. It's designed, and design can be changed. If this gave you something practical, like this video, it genuinely helps more people find content that's worth their time. Leave a comment telling me which of the 5 tricks you're trying first. I read every one. Share this with the person in your life who has been battling their alarm for years without understanding why. And subscribe to this channel, because this is exactly the kind of specific, science-grounded content we make here, consistently. Your best mornings aren't behind you. They haven't started yet.